Ever look in the mirror and think, hey, I've got my mom's eyes, but definitely my dad's nose? Or, look at your brother or sister and wonder how you can possibly be related. Well, we're going to get into all of that. Today, we are diving deep into the incredible science of heredity, basically, the story of what makes you, you.
So, a huge hello to all you Class 10 students tuning in, and really to anyone who's just curious. This one's for you. Welcome to the A1 Institute's Learning Series. We're going to take this pretty complex topic and make it super, super simple. Promise.
Okay, let's get right to the big mystery. We all know we get our traits from our parents, right? That's a given. But why aren't we just exact copies? Like little clones? Why is there so much variety? This question, believe it or not, stumped scientists for ages. And the answer, funny enough, came from a monk who got really, really interested in pea plants. And that monk, of course, was Gregor Mendel. We got to talk about his famous pea plants. See, when he looked at his garden, he didn't just see lunch. Nope, he saw a massive puzzle, just filled with clues about how life passes down its secrets from one generation to the next. So check this out. Here's what Mendel did. Imagine this. He takes a tall plant with nice, round seeds, and he crosses it with a short plant with wrinkled seeds. He's keeping an eye on two different things here, height and seed shape. And what do you think happened? Well, the very first generation of baby plants, they were all tall with round seeds. Every single one. It's like the short and wrinkled traits just vanished. Poof! But this is where it gets really interesting. This is the good part. Mendel then let those new plants pollinate themselves. And when their kids, the next generation, started to grow, guess what? Those lost traits, the shortness and the wrinkled seeds, they came back. And not only did they come back, but they showed up in all sorts of new combinations. It was wild. And here's the absolute kicker. It wasn't just random chaos. Mendel noticed a pattern, a super specific mathematical ratio, 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. Every time. This little number was everything. It was the proof he needed. It showed that traits like height and seed shape weren't just getting smushed together like paint. No, they were being passed down as separate, distinct little packets of information. So Mendel figured out the what, but he couldn't figure out the how. He didn't have the technology. To get that answer, we need to leave his garden behind and zoom way in. I'm talking microscopic level, right into the core of our cells to find the actual blueprint for life. And that blueprint, you guessed it, is DNA. Seriously, think of DNA as the ultimate cookbook for a living thing. Every single cell has a copy, and it contains every recipe needed to build and run the entire show. And what are those recipes for? Well, they're for making proteins. And proteins are like the little construction workers and chefs of the cell doing all the important jobs. Okay, so we have this code, this DNA. But how does a string of letters in a molecule actually turn into a real physical thing, like being tall or short? What's the process here? How does the information become, well, us? It's actually a pretty elegant three-step deal. Let's stick with that cookbook idea. Step 1, the DNA is the whole cookbook. Step 2, a specific section of that DNA, which we call a gene, is like one single recipe in the book. And step 3, that recipe tells the cell how to make a very specific protein. That protein then goes off and does its job, and the result of that job is the trait we can actually see. Let's bring this back to the pea plants. It'll make perfect sense. The gene for being tall is what we call dominant. Why? Because its recipe makes a super efficient protein, an enzyme that churns out a ton of growth hormone. More hormone means a taller plant. Simple. Now the gene for being short is recessive. Its recipe is a little bit different, so it makes a much less efficient enzyme. So even if a plant has one recipe for tall and one for short, that one efficient tall recipe just takes over, and the plant grows tall. The only way for a plant to end up short is if it gets two copies of that less efficient recessive gene. See? It all boils down to how well the proteins do their job. Okay, so now that we've got the basic rules down, let's use them to understand something really fundamental about us humans, how biological sex is determined. For a lot of animals, like some reptiles, it can depend on the temperature of the egg. But for us, nah. It's written right there in our genetic code. So you know how our DNA isn't just one long string? It's neatly packaged into these things called chromosomes. We humans have 23 pairs of them. Now, the first 22 pairs are pretty straightforward. They're matched sets. But it's that very last pair, number 23, the sex chromosomes, that's where the story really gets good.
And it's actually really simple. If that 23rd pair consists of two X chromosomes, we call that XX, and that's the genetic blueprint for a female. But if it's one X chromosome paired with a smaller Y chromosome, that's XY, and that's the genetic blueprint for a male. That one tiny difference kicks off a whole cascade of development. So here's the key takeaway. Think about it. A mother has two X chromosomes, right? So every egg she makes is going to have an X in it. No choice. A father, on the other hand, has an X and a Y. That means half of his sperm will carry the X, and the other half will carry the Y. So it all comes down to which sperm gets to the egg first. If it's an X-carrying sperm, you get XX, a girl. If it's a Y-carrying sperm, you get XY, a boy. It's literally a 50-50 shot determined by the father's contribution.
All right, we have gone from pea plants to proteins all the way to people. That's a lot of ground. So let's do a quick-fire recap of the big rules of heredity we've unpacked today. Rule number 1, for every trait, we get 2 copies of a gene, one from mom and one from dad. Rule number 2, some of those genes are dominant. They always win, while others are recessive and only show up if you get 2 copies. Rule 3, Mendel's big discovery. Traits are usually passed down independently, which is why we get all those cool new combinations. And finally, Rule 4, for humans, biological sex is decided by whether you get an X or a Y chromosome from your father. So when you think about it, our genes are kind of like the first draft of our life story. They lay out the blueprint for things like our height, our eye color, you name it. But that leaves us with one last really big question to ponder, doesn't it? Our genes may write the book, but how many blank pages are left for us to fill in with our choices, our lifestyle, and just our life? I really hope this whole explainer helps clear things up about heredity. If it did, and if you found it useful, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that like button. Share it with anyone else who might be curious. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the A1 Institute YouTube channel. We've got a lot more explainers like this coming your way. And hey, one last thing for all you students. If you're looking for some top-notch guidance, great notes, or maybe you have questions about admissions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us at A1 Institute. All the info you need, including our phone number, is waiting for you in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.